Welcome, I'm Melinda Kinlami. Tonight, low turnout characterizes voting in the governorship and House of Assembly elections, but is adjudged to be a peaceful exercise nationwide. 7 people reportedly killed in the elections across Nigeria, reports the Situation Room. President, candidate and other leaders vote. Most of them expressed optimism about the exercise. And 44 police officers involved in a motor accident at the FCT, some seriously injured. Voting for the governorship and House of Assembly elections is over now, and results are expected to begin to trickle in. Earlier in the day, most Nigerians seem to have spoken by casting their votes for candidates of their choice. Yes, there were a few dramatic situations, like a protest by corps members in Lagos over alleged non-payment of allowances, which an INEC official dismissed as false. Across the country, voting appears to have been largely peaceful, though low turnout is said to have characterized the process. In Jigawa State, despite the low voter turnout, citizens voted in a peaceful atmosphere. There's a similar scenario in Kwara, Anambra, Ebonyi and Enugu State, save for reports of voter apathy. The card reader issue popped up in Benue State, resulting to a protest and eventual burning of ballots in a primary school where the sensitive materials were kept, and 2 people were reportedly killed in that same state. There was also another sad incident at the FCT where reports say 44 policemen on election duty were involved in an accident and some sustained injuries. Then in Kano State, there were reports of unstamped INEC materials which created anxiety amongst the voters. In Lagos, voting got off to a late start, especially in Koshofe local government and Ogudu GRA. It does appear that the exercise could not begin at all as of the time our correspondent visited the scene. But of course, overall, voting took place and Nigerians are now awaiting the outcome of today's exercise. Vote counting has begun in many polling centers across the country as the governorship and state houses of assembly elections wind down. Governorship elections are being conducted in only 29 states, while House of Assembly elections are holding in all the 36 states of the country. Earlier in the day, there were reports of delay in the takeoff of the election in some places visited by our correspondents due to the refusal of ad hoc staff to collect voting materials. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, had given instructions that 0 votes will be recorded in areas where card readers failed to work. The ad hoc officials had complained about the non-payment of their allowances during the previous election. There was also reports of strong military presence on major highways across the country. Now, except for Agege, Ogudu GRA and Koshofe, Lagos State, the conduct of the governorship and state House of Assembly elections were smooth. But unlike the huge turnout of voters during the presidential elections, voter apathy generally impacted on the turnout today. Our correspondent, Bukola Joe Oketumbi, has this report.
State, residents turn out to cast their votes for a new state governor and members of the State House of Assembly. This is polling unit 22 in Mile 2 Estate in the Amuwadofin area. Voters here say the setback experienced in the voting process is frustrating. In Festac town, the story is not very different except for the failure of the card reader.
I came out today with that confidence that at least I can cast my vote, to be proud to be a Nigerian. After going through the rigors of collecting the card, you understand that? Now I'm coming today again, I was told I cannot cast my vote. Why? My card is not ready again.
At the Sokoto area of the Solo Local Council Development Area, it's calm compared with the violence that occurred during the presidential elections, but voter turnout is low. In neighboring Isolo, ad hoc staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission staged a protest over unpaid allowances.
Constituency 2. We are told that we are told that they gave them at Isolo Oshodi, Constituency 1, 3,015 allowance for 2 weeks election. But now, everybody are here, including core members. They are here to collect the 2 weeks ago.
Next, in the Ogudu area of Koshofe local government, voting did not start until about 2 p.m. Still in Koshofe local government area, but this time in Isheri North, the community playing field is not only a polling unit, but is a mix of pleasure. Ikorodu local government is not left out, as INEC officials did not arrive until about 9:30 a.m. at polling units 13 and 14 on Allison Street. Some residents share their experience of the voting process.
Everywhere in Ikorodu now, the INEC officials are in place, and people are exercising their civic responsibilities without any disruption.
At the Lausa Police Station Junction polling unit in Ikeja, vote counting is in progress. It's the same for Mushi and Oshodi. Now that the vote counting process has begun across Lagos, many Lagosians will be waiting with bated breath to hear the formal announcement from the Independent National Electoral Commission of who will finally take over the seat of power in Alausa. From the Afari Ogun Nursery and Primary School in Orile Oshodi, Lagos, Bukola Joe Oketumbi, Channels Television News.
Aside from Anambra State, where Governor Willie Obiano is continuing as the governor, there is heavy jostling for the #1 seat in the rest of the states of the southeast. Let's see how voting took place in that region.
Voting in most parts of Abia State commenced at about 8 a.m. with ad hoc staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission arriving early. A case in time is that of Ndume Ohokobe in Umuahia, the state capital, where election materials and INEC officials arrived as early as 7:45 a.m., a remarkable improvement on the last poll.
The turnout is not a problem, but you hope the electorate are going.
In various polling units across Anambra State, the concern centers around smart card reader malfunctioning as well as voters' apathy.
There is a little issue, maybe network or I don't know, but the card reader is working. So they are now voting properly now.
We have toured some polling units within Onitsha and Mpo and Obosi. And right now we are here. From the information we gathered, things were moving on well, both the National Assembly and the State Assembly, only that some group of boys wanted to foment trouble and they were arrested by the police and they were taken away.
The nationwide restriction order was also implemented in Obosi town in Idemili North local government area. The order was subsequently relaxed for observers and journalists. According to this observer in Enugu State, the election has been violence-free.
They started accreditation and voting 8 a.m. sharp, and voters were waiting. People are there, seated at the canopies. So everything is moving on fine.
While some electorate turned up early for voting in Imo State, voters complain of late arrival of materials at some polling units.
INEC people came a little bit late, but immediately they came, they start the business immediately. So it is okay.
Where we came up from Njiman's side, well, it was quite so bad that we saw a market going on there and we asked why, and they said they were not interested in voting because the votes don't count. So what is the need of them coming out to vote?
While voters appear to be relatively confident in INEC and the security operatives at this poll, the general voter apathy appears to be the main downside of this election.
And in the south states of Akwa Ibom, Delta and Cross River, the voting has been described as largely peaceful. In this next report, our correspondent, Emana Amawe, examines the electoral process in these states.
Voters in 29 out of the 36 states of the Federation set out early to cast their ballots for their governors and decide those who would represent them in the state houses of assembly. All appears calm in some areas, and in some other areas, the atmosphere is tense following reports of skirmishes on the election day and some the day before. Case in point being the INEC office in Besikwa, Akwa Ibom State. The undeterred electorate turn out to exercise their franchise.
So far, from all the reports we are getting this morning, since 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, this has been the pattern. So we are very happy that the first promise is kept, and what we now expect is for the voters, the party agents, to be orderly.
The situation here is that the environment is very conducive and we are having free, fair and credible elections. We are experiencing an orderly manner here. So that's what we are hoping. So we thank God for everything. This will be moving smoothly.
The atmosphere is somewhat different in neighboring Cross River State. While voters turn up in large numbers in some areas, voter apathy characterizes a great part of the polls.
I'm happy that there's good turnout as we expected and as mobilized by us, the traditional rulers and politicians around. It's very peaceful and it's going to end well.
In Delta State, INEC officials and ad hoc staff get busy with the business of the day and events kick off as expected. The voters show up at their polling units and votes are cast for the preferred candidates.
It's been very good. It's been peaceful, as you can see yourself. The card reader has been working. Everybody's been, within a few minutes of coming onto the field, they sign and they've gone. They've completed, they've cast their votes and they've left.
By 8 a.m., materials already on ground, everything was set. It was even the ad hoc staff that were waiting for the electorate, the people to come and vote. So I think today's zone is commendable for INEC.
The voters across these states commend the electoral umpire on the preparations for the elections and can only hope that their ballots cast will translate to positive results for the candidates of their choice. Emana Amawe, Channels Television News.
Voting began at 8 a.m. as scheduled in Sokoto State with a large turnout of voters at the city center. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports that the citizens remained calm as they came out as early as 6 a.m. She also gives us an insight into the political intrigues in the state.
They arrived before we did. Women, men, young and old, waiting at 6:30 a.m. for the opportunity to cast their votes to determine who will govern Sokoto State for the next 4 years. Finally, at 8 a.m., the officials from INEC arrive at this polling unit in Magajin Rafi, Sokoto South Local Government Area, and the business of voting begins. No card reader issues, and from where we stood, no child voters, even though their presence here gave us reason to worry earlier. Despite the 30 state assembly seats and 51 governorship candidates in the state, the major competition is between the incumbent governor, Aminu Tambuwal of the PDP, and his former deputy, Aliyu Ahmad of the APC. An alliance that broke with the governor's defection to the PDP and his deputy refusing to defect with him, a situation which many have said caused him to resign in November of 2018. The APC has the support of federal might, considering the success of the party during the presidential elections, while the PDP has the power of incumbency in a battle that cuts really close to the bone on both sides. The intrigues in Sokoto State have driven the people in droves to polling units across the state. On the Sultan Abubakar Road alone, we recorded no less than 7 polling units, with a massive turnout at each unit. The palace of the Sultan of Sokoto is also a polling unit, which recorded a large turnout of voters. The process is peaceful in the city center as we await the next phase of the process, collation and announcement of results. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, President Muhammadu Buhari and his vice, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, cast their votes. That's in a moment. Join us again.